How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Wolf, and welcome to my top 3 caster builds for Blight League. Now, I'm sure most of you will be seeing this time in the corner and think, not only am I fucking insane for recording at 3 a.m., but I'm also recording before the patch notes have come out. And I know that triggers quite a few people, but due to my current situation, I won't have internet during the league start. So as a result, I kind of have to record these beforehand and go for builds that aren't going to be nerfed. And that's pretty easy to guess because they're gonna probably nerf Cyclone, let's be honest here. So in that sort of vein, most spells probably won't be touched. And in that case, I have some very simple yet effective builds that will work wonders for you in Blight League. I am of course also taking into consideration the league mechanic when looking at these builds. So to start off, we have a crit based Freeze Pulse / Frostbolt Occultist. You can play this either way. You can use Freeze Pulse or Frostbolt in the exact same link and do a very substantial amount of damage with just a staff and wind scream for extra curse damage. This is all I've really planned in and ended up with very good DPS. Now, this path of building isn't using it right now exactly, but you want to use Herald of Ice to get some very good spell crit shatters that go through the entire map. I played up to about tier 13, 14 with this in Synthesis League, I believe, so map drops were pretty shitty. And 14 was about as high as we could manage because that's all I could get to drop at the time, which kind of sucked. Now, this character is ES based because I wanted to experiment around with that, as well as some spell crit and managed very good DPS. The only issue you're going to have is you're going to need to slot in some, some attributes on gear. So a good Onyx necklace can solve this problem rather easily. Now, it is playing Occultist. However, you're going to be losing Vile Bastion because obviously that's been removed. So in that case, you can go for Frigid Wake to get more chill and freeze-based stuff, or potentially push for Malediction to be able to put on an extra curse and get even more damage. You can get some pretty insane shatters going if you go the Malediction route. Now, in regards to the skill tree, we go out the ES side to get all of this because Arcane Will gives us a ton of extra ES thanks to the percent of max mana as ES. So you can get a ton of value right there. You can alternatively skip this if you want to skip points, but we go out left, get Frostwalker for extra damage and some cold res. You get some very easy resistances in this as well. As much spell crit as possible. Get the first snow jewel if you're playing Freeze Pulse or whatever the Frostbolt one is in Act 5. You will need to play 2 characters for this type of thing since you're using 2 threshold jewels. And then get the power charge here. Pop over, get some ES, pop up here, and get all of the cold damage nodes, because those are very important. And then make your way down here, more ES right here. CI, you don't have to take CI until like way later. Abuse the extra 800 life while you can. Then you've got some more spell crit down at Doomcast here. Pop down, get the strength, probably get the dex node as well. And come over, get some crit and crit multi, as well as fire res, cold res, cold damage, and crit chance. And then you want to go the cold crit instead of fire crit here for some nice damage. Pop down here, get cast speed, and then the other jewel slot right here. You could alternatively go for this one. I don't know if it's exactly enough. I think it's 1 inch short of being what you need. So this one and this one will get you your threshold jewels. So make sure to grab them. Then we get Ethereal Feast for Spell Leech. This should make you pretty much unkillable because you're leeching ES all the time, as well as freezing the whole map just as you go through things. Then we end up with Soul Siphon for mana gained on kill, which does proc off spells, by the way, which is an exceptional node. This will keep your mana topped up rather easily. And then we cut through for more spell damage, some more damage, projectile speed, and AoE, even though I don't think AoE does anything. And Soul Thief for more ES Leech, and power charges. This gives us like 4 or 5 power charges where we can get some very good crit multi and very good crit hit chance, which allows us to push some rather decent DPS while keeping the whole map pretty much frozen. Now, the reason this is going to be so good is there's actually a trick you can do with Frostbolt from my experience. If you use the Volley support gem, the level 2 support gem, you can actually use it and create a giant wall of Frostbolts. I'll link you to a video down below where I showcase playing said character, and I show that off as well. It's pretty damn good, and that's going to be exceptional when it comes to Blight League, because of course everything's going to walk down its little track, right? So you throw this wall of projectiles, and maybe you get it big enough that it hits like both lanes. Yeah, you're just going to spell crit and send a shatter going all the way down the lane, and it's just going to be satisfying all around. If it was that good in maps, it's going to be really good during Blight League. So that is the Freeze Pulse Occultist, and I hope you guys enjoy that. So, to move on, we have a 1 million DPS Arc Elementalist. Now, this is about as simple gets. The reason that I chose Arc is, yes, it has been nerfed before. It literally got nerfed last league, and it nerfed the chain range. Now, that's not really going to be an issue when you're playing in Blight League, because most enemies should be pretty close together, and you should have the ability to chain reaction all the way down the line. So as a result, Arc is going to potentially come back, maybe not into the meta, but at least being quite powerful. If you want to play Arc and you've considered playing it, but they nerfed it last league and you decided not to, I think Blight League will get you a lot of value doing exactly that. Now, in regards to items, this thing is pretty much fully itemized. It has lightning damage, Ellie opal rings, it's got very good wands, the spell crit doesn't really matter, they're filler stats. I believe I made this up for someone at one point. And then we go decent ES life hybrid. You can obviously go a lot tankier, but getting life on Witch is kind of a bitch. So it might be better to go for ES in that case. And of course we've got damage flasks and all that sort of stuff. You don't really need any uniques to get this sort of damage, just rather decent wands with some hybrid roll and some very good spell damage, as well as percent lightning. And you can get some pretty good mileage. This is what the setup would look like. Spell Echo, or the, I don't remember what it's called, but the new version of Spell Echo that's pretty much Spell Echo but cooler. I'm sure you guys know the one. I don't remember what it's fucking called. It's really cool though. And yeah, I mean, Immortal Call is a little bit outdated, but you guys can make it work. I believe in you. Skill tree wise, we start out at the spell damage portion, and you can cut right to get your Blood Siphon to make it so you heal a ton of life on kill. Keep in mind, it's Arc, so it will chain reaction to a bunch of mobs, and that will give you some very sufficient healing, especially during Blight League. You can also take Soul Siphon if you find yourself having any form of mana problems, because that will give you mana gain on kill. And if your lightning is chaining around, on top of that you can have Vol Arc that can just annihilate the whole map if everything lines up correctly. Using Vol Arc in incursions or delves are some of the most satisfying moments. Obviously, since its chain range got nerfed, it's not as good, but it's still really good. Then we've got Crackling Speed over here for some cast speed and lightning damage, as well as a Jewel down here. Just get the best Jewel you can. This one has spell damage while dual wielding, cast speed, and lightning damage. It is pretty god roll, but any combination of the three, any combination of the four, actually, should be rather good for you. Then going to the left, keystones you want is going to be Mind Over Matter, a little bit later, obviously. Don't take this to start or you'll be out of mana. Take that a little later. As well as Elemental Overload. This is going to give you a very good amount of damage because you have a small chance to crit, so this should be up pretty much 24/7. And then you can pop over and get Stormweaver for more lightning damage, as well as cast speed up here, because the more casts of Arc you can get, the better, pretty much. Since it can't chain as much, you got to make up for it with self-casts. And then we pick up the Jewel here with as well rolled as possible. Up top for Breath of Lightning and Heart of Thunder for as much damage as you can get, as well as it gives you Lightning leached as ES. So if you want to take the ES route, which is always viable if going Witch, I like to experiment and try and do half and half. You can get some very nice ES leech there. Then we go down to the left to get Retribution, Disciple for life here, and then we get spell damage and cast speed, and we cut through here for more life, Jewel, and then minion damage. This sounds weird, but this makes minion damage apply to you, and we have a Bone Helmet on this character to give us a ton of extra damage. And that's pretty much the skill tree. It works out quite well as we go and get extra life down here. Now, of course, if you wanted to cut out the life, all you'd really have to do is get the ES nodes here, ES nodes over here, and then the ES up here for Arcane Will, and then you can get a decent amount because, of course, if you're playing Mind Over Matter, you're going to have very good max mana, which is going to give you good results from Arcane Will. That's how to convert it over to ES. And then up in Elementalist, we go for Beacon of Ruin first, so you can hit things with all of your like shock and all that sort of stuff, and spread it to other enemies, as well as picking up Shaper of Desolation, which lets you do basically the exact same thing, and gain a bunch of shocks, ignites, chills, that sort of thing. The wonders of the Elementalist. You can also go for the last point, Pendulum of Destruction, to get increased elemental damage. Of course, AoE doesn't do anything for Arc, so it's not really as good. You can also go for Mastermind of Discord if you want to really push extra damage, as well as Paragon of Calamity, so you can't kill yourself with Illy Reflect. That's pretty important if you're playing a spell-based character, isn't it? I'd say so. And to round us off, we're going to go for a classic, my Blade Vortex Chieftain. I believe it's this path of building. Let me check the other one. Yeah, I'd say it's that one. This is my Blade Vortex Chieftain that I attempted to do Shaper with, and I didn't get to Shaper necessarily. I think I got to do Guardians after the league rolled over, but I got to about tier 15, and we took on a Delve boss down at like depth 400 or 500, something like that. We didn't kill him, sadly. We got very close, but didn't end up killing him. However, this character made all content, and I mean all content, a fucking breeze. Leveling it was way too easy. And then playing it at endgame, once I didn't even really have to put much effort into it. This is a full SSF character. Once I ended up with a decent Doriani's Catalyst and a very good shield to make me rather tanky, this character, nothing stood in its way. Nothing at all. I combined that with a Carcass Jack for even more AoE, and we were running, as well as good spell damage from Dodri's Tenure, and things just kept adding up and adding up and adding up. This is also the character I rolled this godly necklace that allowed me to get some very good results with, because Fizz as extra fire actually counts for Blade Vortex, because Blade Vortex, weirdly enough, I believe it needed to be converted, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you need conversion for Blade Vortex because it's a physical spell, like Ethereal Knives. So you needed to convert it, and then that meant Fizz as extra fire gives you bonus damage. So you can use that however you want when gearing. It opens up a lot of possibilities in regards to rolling like stupid Elder weapons. I was trying to make a Elemental Shaper or Elder Mace that had Fizz as extra fire with spell damage on it, like the Elemental Scepter base. Never got around to that, but if you really want to have a character you can take to very, very powerful endgame, this is one of them. And they nerfed Blade Vortex last league just very slightly. They made its early game a little bit worse, so there's a very low chance it gets touched again. And if you also do want a character that plays like this, but you're not a fan of how Blade Vortex works, you could try playing Winter Orb as well. I don't have one of those personally, but it was meta a couple leagues ago, so I'm sure there's Winter Orb builds everywhere. So this is a very simple, very effective BV character. The thing about Blade Vortex, though, you need to kind of know before going into it, is it's very stop-start. So you stop, you channel for like 10 seconds, you get, not 10 seconds, but like 3 seconds. You get all your charges up, then you haul ass until your charges run out, and then you stop and you reaccumulate your charges. That's the way that Blade Vortex and Winter Orb play. If you're not really a fan of that, maybe look at some of the other two builds. There's a reason there's 3 of them. But let's take a look at the skill tree. It kind of goes both ways, really. But the classic Marauder start, we get Life, get Heart of the Warrior, then cut through Diamond Skin, pop over here and get the Juggernaut to get that a little bit tankier. Come down here for Unwavering Stance, and our Battle Cry, which I believe Battle Cry got moved over here, which kind of sucks. You got to path a little extra. Pop down, get Dexterity and Bloodless. Pop up here to get Arsonist for added fire damage and life. Get Barbarism for max fire res. That's very useful at endgame. As well as endurance charges and this one very important node right here for 0.2% of max life regen per endurance charge. Then we want to get a jewel slot here. You can give or take this. This was a very good spell damage jewel that I rolled. And then we come up here to get more life. This character's rather tanky, as well as dexterity for stats. Pop over here with devotion and get the jewel here as well. Cut through, get discipline for life, get cast speed and spell damage here, and some AoE. And then cut up here to get Elite Overload, because you have a small amount of crit, which will give you a shit ton of damage. It's really good. And come over here for AoE and fire damage, up to Avatar Fire, because we have to convert. Don't ask me why, but we do. So we need to get Avatar Fire plus the Chieftain node, wherever it is, the Gamu's Flame Advance to convert that. And we go up to Holy Fire to get fire damage and spare burning damage, as well as Heart of Flame, and any excess you can put into Breath of Flames. And then we come down here for AoE and area damage with a little bit of extra life. And that's pretty much the skill tree. Rather simple, rather effective. Now, I know this skill tree, I believe, is out of date, which kind of sucks, but it just gets better. Let's be entirely honest. With all the updates and with Chieftain getting more damage, this skill tree just gets better. Now, realistically, I should probably update it, but due to time constraints, I don't really have that luxury, so you'll have to forgive me on that one. I know the Path of Exile community is not very forgiving, but that's just kind of how it goes, sadly. So yeah, this character is all around exceptional, and transitioning it to current state of PoE, it's really not that hard, because everything it's got just gets better, and that's just kind of how PoE goes with the wonderful skill tree updates they keep pushing out. But yeah, that is my 3 caster builds for you. You can also transition this to Elementalist if you want to. You just, put 3 points here and you've got Witch Start, and you take out this side, and you're BV Elementalist. It's not really that much different. But yeah, so that is my 3 caster builds for Blight League. Let me know your guys' opinions down below, and as always, thanks for watching. Take care, gentlemen.